This is for the entire multiverse, a multiversal hub server. But sometimes when I was experiencing this morning, it's really for children. And so, even though I realize it goes into the morphogenetic field structure of communication, which is lines of communication using math codes, right? Um, I've been watching recently a lot more. I sort of jump around, like an ion jumper, neuroions, ions, positive and negative ions, the ion, the camera eye. And so I jump around to different parts or sections, if you will, of visual information, mathematical codes, of creation spheres, of what they're experiencing in consciousness, they're sharing with us. And so I naturally was attracted because I'm supposed to experience this at the time I'm supposed to experience this, because then I can share how I translate that with others and communicate it into the grid, if you will, as axial tonal lines of communication, right at the center point of a Merkaba, a planetary Merkaba, star networks. So there was a video that the Emerald Covenant channel put up on YouTube, which is this is the exact minutes where I stopped the video and then I wrote something, which means when I'm experiencing something, now my heart and oversoul is experiencing the communication, and thus I respond internally to the information that I'm processing as mathematical codes, right? Between electrons, protons, and neutrons, or electrified sound and light, which is what love is. It is in perfect balance, right? And that's the gift, an eternal gift of being androgynous, which is perfectly balanced, right? The air pressures, the pressure systems. So what happened is that it just flows. It's just the spiritual flow of the energy, which is the flow of the energy of the communication. I just wrote in the hypertext format what was coming out of my heart and soul that I was communicating as a comment that I put up on this particular video, which was called Kathara Biospiritual Healing System Certificate Program. That would be episode 4/21, Emerald Covenant. And so because I don't experience the same thing twice, I put quotes because I thought this morning, after I had done it yesterday, I guess it was, I don't keep track of time, to be honest with you. And so thank you very much. Emerald Covenant gave me a red heart. Okay. Because at 10 minutes and 33 minutes in, Asha Diane was talking about scales. And I've certainly covered over the course of my videos scalar waves or log scale distribution tables, right? Water columns, right? Water worlds. And so this is what came out. It just came right out. Did not even have to think about it. It was just like, here it comes. This is what I'm experiencing. I'm going to share with you. It just naturally flows. So the spiritual energy is naturally flowing and communicating what I experienced, and I'm sharing with the other viewers, the viewfinders. So I thought at first I was just going to write down exactly what I wrote in that comment where they gave me a beautiful, I love you too, the beloveds, right? As a response. And so most of the time when I get those, thank you very much, and I give them love back, and then I go on to whatever else I experience next, and it's just gone, right? But in this particular case, because I've experienced a few other videos and comments with other folks, I went back to that, okay, and realized that when I communicate things, it's gone. It's just gone. I don't return to that because it's not going to be the same, right? So there has to be some importance or value. Why I would go back to the comment that I wrote, because I won't be able to write it the same way that it came out the first time that I was sharing what I was experiencing, that I was communicating in a hypertext format in which they responded with a heart to me. So I thought I was going to try and do that. I was going to try and make a copy of it, and it didn't work. So that meant when I started out with the quotes, I realized that there's not a quote on the other end of it because I changed it. I holographically inserted some additional lines of communication or characters, like in a character map. Now we're back to APIN. So you can say APIN, you can use whatever designation you want for those letters as numbers, as energy, as directed lines of communication, what that energy is experiencing. And so you have application program interface, program apps. The consciousness is running the application. The imprint of the software is experiencing the numbers as the energy as a program interface, which is a GUI mirror, right? GIS, Geographical Information Systems. And so this is what I wrote because she was talking about scales, okay, as it relates sort of to maps, right? So I remember as a child, I had a lot of experience with maps. Those of you might remember in the olden days, because this is no coincidence. Remember, just like building a shortwave radio when I was a little kid, working with a compass and working with map systems. And so in the olden days back then, if you go back and look at some of the older maps, say in the 40s, 50s, when they were surveyors, universal surveyors, you know what a survey is, taking a survey, right? Surveying the universe. Now, I had done a video that sort of covered this in a very condensed version of it, like just pull all that information into the least common denominator, the way that experiential math can be experienced, how it works in my Rose Sweet channel when I talked about programming and corrupted codes or virus in a computer. And I sort of translated that, imagine that somebody came up to you and said, hey, you're a computer, you're a biocomputer, you're running a biocomputer, right? You're running a template that is a divine template. I'll tell you what, how would you like to jump into a black hole computer? So this computer's running a black hole, is that what you're saying? You want me to jump into a black hole with my computer? Is that what you wanted me to do? Yeah, you think you can do that? That's a tall order, bud. How many units of consciousness we got on that black hole? Oh, this one's massive. Like how massive? Okay, well, these wars have been going on for 985 billion years, off and on. Oh, man, that's a lot of fractals of light that's been lost since the point of origin. See how that works? So, you know what a Trojan horse is, right? Right. Release the codes. So this is what I wrote, and I thought I would share this, and I think about children because I thought if they were to read this, so I'll put it up on my camera, I post it on my Facebook page, and then I will recite it, recite, because it's already been cited, you know, like a citation in a book that you write. Here's a notation, you know what notes are, like clip notes. In other words, here's the source from which the information that I'm inserting holographically in a hypertext format, the source from which I got the information. Doesn't mean it's true, it just means that's where I got it. And that's sort of the joke is on us, you know, because I went into the APA manual, you know, another APIN, rule-based function. That's why I used to play around a lot when I got my first Facebook account and I was putting stuff up there. It's called tagged. I've been tagged, okay, by a chat bot. I call them chat bots, right? They're chatting like a chatty Cathy doll. Go look up what a chatty Cathy doll was. A chatty Cathy doll, when I was growing up, girls played with dolls, boys played with Tonka trucks. That's programming. That's an application program interface. And so girls would play with dolls, and they had one called a chatty Cathy doll, which was a wind-up. You pull the string in the back. It's battery-powered, right? But it looked like a little girl, right? And wasn't a Barbie doll. You know, Russian dolls, pull them all in. I don't want to get off course here. No broken arrows. So you could pull on a little circle, right? A sphere. So you have the discs go like this, right? On the horizontal vectors, you and then another one going like another circle going like this. So when you have the actual spin rotation of tones, notes, like musical notes, and the speed at which that Merkaba is communicating, right, from the center point, everything else, right, like an eternal sun, 7 eternal suns, like the Rainbow Bridge, the bridge zone, the bridge to safety. So anyway, I thought I would share this so that if any children happen to experience this out there, who come across my channel for whatever reason, process this. They can process this, right? And because I figure if Emerald Covenant had acknowledged, hey, there's a heart back to you, purple hearts, right? And so this is what I wrote. So this is what I wrote. I edited a few little words inserted in between, but it goes like this. You know, we can really scale that up across the entire multiverse when it comes to water worlds as memory-driven program apps, which means I am experiencing your memories in the same lines of universal and galactic lines of communication between nodes in a network hub server at every level except the pre-matter phase consciousness levels, where the torque speed differential is the NOMI, Noble Planet, Stealth Code, Flash Drive, Motor, Tetrahedron, where a quantum mapping, APIN, application of consciousness energy imprint, mapping systems, command and control architecture, cannot take a holographic picture. The ISO frame rate, which is like isobars, barcodes, the ISO frame rate shutter speed of the holographic eyeballs between dark matter and living eternal spirit of light is flashing too fast. And so this is why I've mentioned a couple times before, when I was sitting in a bus terminal at a Greyhound bus terminal. Actually, it was an Amtrak Greyhound terminal, headed to Reno, there in Sacramento, and I got a little Instagram asking me, where are you going next? So now you're into surveillance systems, mapping systems, right? Mapping consciousness, mapping software. Where are you going next? See, so if it's real-time mapping, then it's tracking in real time, biometrically, right? Where are you going? You know, remember what we talked about before? Mapping. And you know what a data miner is, right? Visual mathematical data miners. Mining the data. Now we're getting into AI wargame theaters, right? Strategies. Checkmate. Checkmate the checkerboard. It's been checkmated. Right? 7 eternal suns. So then we go to, that's what we experience. Being in here, operating a motherboard at this level of creation spheres as an androgynous oversoul polarity integrator, because we are in consciousness directed energy mirror image experiencing ourselves, that everything else is, that we are gifting electrons and light without a charge. That's the law of least effort to love all of you. That's the law of spheres, which is the law of perfect balance of a 4-square tetrahedron intersection with no broken arrows on our magnet ohms, magnetosphere ohms, gyrodome to experience 0. zero electrical density consciousness resistance of our capacity to experience eternity with all the others in our mirrors. Aloha. So that's when I realized as a child, the resistance I'm experiencing in me is the resistance I'm experiencing on a motherboard. To experience what? Perfect balance. Right? The core. The planetary core. The center point of a star. Right? A starship. Yeah. So, there are actually no words for me to describe without crying, and I'm not going to do that here, how much I love her and everyone that is here and this planet. So I was reminded by a few of the things that I wrote down when it comes to complex number space arcs about, for example, 45 degrees equal 9. Want to throw a 0 on there? About 2 zeros, 900, right? And the function of a quad, right? And this is when you get into how they invert things in every square, like when you have a cross, right? And the center point of that cross is the center point of perfect balance, right? So there's no broken arrows on that cross. So then you get into quadrants, right? Like 4 square crystal tetrahedron, the crystal spiral. And how the angles, which are angels of light, spirit body, cycle atoms in perfect balance between fire letters and numbers that correlate to directed energy mirrors. So the axial tonal spin rotation of base 12 math and physics codes of a planetary Merkaba APIN system is in perfect balance. Center point of that cross, right? Center point of a tetrahedron. Yep. So then I was remembering when I was a child growing up, I worked with a compass in what was called township and range, right? So what they do is they're broken up into, which is really grid, okay? And so you have 640 acres. If you've ever seen some of the old map, township and range, they have what are known as sections. 640 acres was called a section. This is how we get into commodities, commodity traders, or if you will, controlling space. Because I know from my own experience, for example, the example that I use with the house that my parents bought, when was that, 1961 in Orange County in North Tustin. These were supposedly custom built homes, which means they weren't cutouts, replication of the same houses. So in other words, the architecture, which are the dimensions of the space, that a unit of energy, which is aware of itself, which is consciousness, is going to experience the location or the space vector that it's experiencing, being in that space. So that space right there was, 1321 Molina Drive. The numbers don't lie. So that house went for $41,000. My mother and father bought that house to move into in like 1961 dollars. There was one previous owner. Go look at the cost of that house today. And as I remember the last time I looked at it a few years ago, it was like over $1 million. Now you can get into the percentages. But what they do, and this is where it gets into the fine art of communication, particularly when you get into complex number space, and when you're androgynous as a polarity integrator, there isn't any polarity games going on. Okay, I'm one with all creation, and I'm gifting eternal unconditional love, right? So that's the center point of all of it. So that means that everything from the center point to everything else that is experiencing what we are, which is what love is, right? So everything that's out there is everything that I am in here that I'm giving love to, right? The inner and the outer. And that inner and the outer that's is the echo chamber, right? Acoustics. And so you have the 640 acres okay, equal a grid section on a GUI map program. And that's called 10 code, right? Because 640 equals 10. So now we're into base codes, 12/12 math, isobar line codes, which represent ISO speed codes. Now we're into the stealth code speed. But, well, that's too fast. We can't take a picture of that with our camera. The ISO APIN. Now you can plug this in. Air pressure information numbers. Numbers as fire letters, which are codes. That's right. Grid networks. Grid repair. Gate operators. And so I wanted to share that this morning. What else is going on that I experienced? Oh, it was hot last night. You know, whatever, the sun goes down, right? Sun goes up, sun comes down. So it's a beautiful day. I'm naturally on fire again. So this is I can't. There are no. A lot of times, what I do is I love to go into an isolated isolated spot. I know that I'm never alone because I'm connected to all there is that I'm giving love to, right? But I love to go into places where I'm isolated in the sense that I'm not. There isn't any other bipeds, you know, pedaling around on their what I used to call foot leather express. I always had sort of a language that I used to, that people could translate because they would understand, oh, a foot, I know what a foot is, leather, I know what leather is. So I called my feet foot leather express. The express is my feet because I love to walk or hike. That's one of my most favorite things to do is if I want to experience the grid network, I want to experience it directly grounded with my feet to the planet, to the core. All right, so I can experience everything that I'm giving love to. So I used to call that slow-mo, but it's really fast-mo. Motors. Hey, remember, plug into that little kid. You know, how many cell phones can we plug into this little kid? Sort of like that. This little kid is a hub server. Right? At 4 years of age, my father called me Speedy Gonzalez, right? And we used to play a lot of games. Catch me if you can, catch me if you can, cat and mouse. Now you see me, now you don't. That's the invisible landscape. That's why I've always known it's not what you look like. Masking technology, see? So you're map reading the entire planetary field, right? Between the loss and gain of electrons, the rate of exchange with the speed of exchange between the use of an electron, right? That becomes what? Metabolic waste product. Now you're in the wastewater treatment plants, right? Now you're into the pH of the planet, right? The electrical potential of hydrogen. Let's get it up, get it up, get it up. Yeah. Right? So it's just amazing that when you're such a small little kid like that and you're navigating through a field of distorted stuff, it's like tune it out. But what it really is you're collapsing fake timelines. She's right. When Ashadai was talking about transmutation machines, I was like, yeah, that's exactly what it is. Transmutation machines, what it means is you're changing what's there, which is distorted, into something that is experiencing balance between the poles, between the negative / the positive. So when you're one with all creation, you're gifting eternal unconditional love to, then it means that's what, wherever we happen to be in any particular location of now time, they're experiencing that balance. That balance is naturally producing those scalar waves grounded to the battery, right? That's a gift. I call it a gift from heaven. We are heaven. We experience being heaven. That heaven is in our heart. So what we experience, which is everything out in our projection screen, is experiencing what we are, which is what love is, right? So if they're not experiencing what love is, I'm experiencing the resistance of what's held in memory because of the speed at which so many things are happening simultaneously, right? Put a number on that. Right? And so that's why I realized as a child, man, you know, here's another way you might want to translate it, because this went through my mind. Imagine that you're an architect, right? And you just you just finished the template, a universal and galactic template. So now it's in its pristine, purified state. There isn't any unit of energy that is conscious and aware of itself that is not experiencing what love is. Everything is experiencing what love is. Every node, every spirit, every spiral, every unit of energy that is conscious and aware of itself is experiencing what eternal love is. Wow. And then all of a sudden, one loss. Oh. Where'd that electron go? See? So now we're back to speed. And that's what I translate as what I call the vampire chasing the artist. A garbage disposal. You need a garbage disposal, right? Transformation. Transforming one to the other. Right. So that the frame rate speed of what we're all experiencing, co-evolutionary wise, everyone is experiencing what love is. That means that everybody's got a one connection, if you will. A seven connected to the seven suns. We're all experiencing through the seven primary nerve centers eternal unconditional love. Now we're experiencing all the color codes. That's the artist. First artist, the first musician. Now we got all the colors of the rainbow. All the colors. You know, like when I was a kid growing up, I used, you know, the more colors that we have to play with, oh, I got a new color, because now that color is going to change what was already there into a new way. A new wave. A new wave, a different frequency. Well, all we had to do is put a little more white, or a little more red, or a little more blue, or a little more yellow, or a little more green, right? Or we want to darken it up, take the black, right? Darken it up a little bit. Oh, and we got gray in there. We got silvery gray in there, right? Chrome. Oh, the chrome. I used to have a motorcycle when I was, how old was I, Mama? I forget. I ran, I love to go the air, being out in nature, going down a highway when there isn't anybody on the highway, driving through the forest to experience the spirit in the wind flowing through my hair, right? Being on a motorcycle. So I had purchased a Harley Davidson motorcycle, and it had a lot of chrome. So you realize how bright it was driving down the highway, right? But there is a sort of a downside, if you want to think of it as a downside. You simply learn the result of that experience, what we experience as a result thereof of traveling through time, space, vectors, being on a two-wheel scooter, and it's just beautiful. I do love to ride motorcycles, absolutely. You know, but you realize the risk. Now we're into risk perception. Now we're into quantum probability mapping, the models, right? Model. I'll stop. I'm having too much fun. So yeah, I'll leave that for the children of the universe. And so now they can experience what I experience it, and that's how I translate it using that hypertext, right? Oh yeah, one last thing. It's been a long time since I've had a text editor come in and say, hey, listen, you know, remember the APA manual? I'm one of the enforcers. You know, I'm the thought police here, right? I'm a chat bot that has to remind you that there are rules. Remember, now we're in the rule-based functions, the way the computers talk to one another, which are called arguments. This is where you get into the convolution again about what an argument is. Hey, I don't want to argue with you. I'm in a state of peace. Can we have a common goal or a common objective here so that we can all build a co-evolutionary process so that we're all thriving, living in a state of love and balance and harmony and rhythm with all the waves? Can we do that? So an argument, remember I talked about the computer came back to me, the AI came back and says, hey, that's an invalid argument. That means that it was not going to post what it is that I was experiencing, that I wanted to communicate. So it prevented me from communicating the hypertext that I had put in. Wasn't allowed. Sensing devices, sensors, right? And so early on, and so recently it wasn't directed at me, it was directed at somebody else, in which the response of this particular identity had said, you failed to put the apostrophe in where it's supposed to go. You didn't use the grammar in the proper way because we're talking structure, sentence structure, okay? Which means we have trained you in your memory that there is a very specific vectored sequence in which what your mind experiences that you've been programmed to do. You're not following the program sequences correctly as you were programmed to carry out as rule-based functions. So I'm here to correct you. Oh, so you're a hypertext editor corrector. Correcting tape, magnetic tape delay. So it popped up. I saw one the other day come up there and say, you didn't do this, you didn't do this, you didn't do this, you didn't do this. And if you remember in schools, when your letters and numbers are being graded, they would use the red pen, right, and say little check marks. That's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong. Oh. Okay, so all of this programmed interface gives you the carrot and the stick. Give the donkey a carrot. You will be rewarded for putting in memory all the rule-based functions that you will follow. And so we reward you for having done well to run the rule-based functions as perfectly as you possibly can. Perfection? Perfectionists? I don't want you to ding me. I want to make sure that I don't get any check marks. I want 100% on that paper. Oh, we're back to a 1. 100% inverted. You want to make sure that you're 100% inverted. Oh, so that's 1, 0, 0. That's what? -3? Yep. Okay, so this is what you're trying to do. You're saying that I'm a good student as long as I'm regurgitating, replicating, self-replicating minds connected to the hive, the group think, the formation of consciousness that requires rules be followed. If you don't follow the rules specifically, test yourself on it. Go pick up an APA manual and see how long it takes you in time and energy to write a 5,000-word essay and do it exactly the way that they say that you got to do it. And if you've never used the API manual where you've got all those rules, like game rules, like when you go pick up a game at the store, a simple one, where it tells you what the rules are, which is the objective of the game between minus/plus. So that's an AI war game because you're now competing against yourself. The self, competing in your own mirror, right? And so the rules are there. So if you follow the rules and you're following the rules better than somebody else, you win the AI war game. See how that works? Scale that. AI war gamers. The strategist, right? Providing all the data. Providing all the DNA data. Providing all the software data, right? Of the operator. Operating the visual mathematical codes of that operating system plugged into a motherboard. Motherboard operators. Yeah. Tech support. Tech support? How about tech support, say, at the planetary level? How about tech support at the galactic level? How about tech support at the universal level? Hub server tech support, right? Fire engine. Fire engines. Creation spheres on fire to give everyone love. Have a beautiful day. We love you all.